On February 2nd, 1847, the first member of the Donner Party dies in the Sierra Nevada mountains. In fall 1846, a group of 87 people joined up in South Pass, Wyoming, to make the final leg of the trip to California. Most were farmers with little experience with wilderness travel. Two large families, the Donners and the Reeds, were at the heart of the group, with George Donner as the unofficial leader. They did not leave Wyoming until dangerously late in the year, on October 27, 1846. They elected to take an unproven shortcut known as Hastings Cutoff through the yet unsettled Salt Lake Valley. Explorer Lansford Hastings proposed this alternate route in his book, The Emigrant's Guide to Oregon and California. The biggest problem? Hastings recommended this route before having actually traveled it himself, and was therefore unaware of the difficulties of the terrain. Hastings Cutoff forced the Donner Party to hack their way through the tree-lined canyons of the Wasatch Mountains, and then trek across the salt flats of the barren Great Salt Lake Desert. Hastings' route turned out not to be a shortcut after all, and wasted precious time. Once they reached the Sierras, the heavy snows came earlier than most years, and hit harder than usual, forcing the pioneers to make camp near a small lake, now known as Donner Lake, north of Lake Tahoe. 42 people, about half the group, died from cold and starvation, and many of the rest resorted to cannibalism, eating their fallen companions just to survive. Seeking help, 15 brave men in the group trekked 100 miles through the snow to Sutter's Fort in the Sacramento Valley, where a rescue party was organized and sent to save the survivors. The last survivor rescued, German immigrant Louis Keseberg, was found wrapped in a blanket and surrounded by human bones. Next to him was a pot of what appeared to be fresh human liver and lungs. Oddly, after his rescue, he operated a hotel and a restaurant in Sacramento for a time. Another interesting fact about the struggles of the Donner Party is that the route it hacked through the Wasatch Mountains, a passage in what is now known as Emigration Canyon, made it easier for the Mormon pioneers who came to the Salt Lake Valley less than a year later. Some of those Mormon pioneers, in fact, were my own ancestors. If you ever find yourself driving on Interstate 80 through the Sierra Nevadas, you should take the time to stop and see the site of the Donner Party's camp at Donner Memorial State Park in Truckee, California. The views of Donner Lake are absolutely stunning. You can walk a trail that takes you to the remains of the different campsites and shelters used back in 1847. You can also see a 20-plus foot tall tree stump cut by members of the Donner Party, which shows the height of the snow that the pioneers faced. There is also a visitor center and a memorial dedicated to the Donner Party and other pioneer groups that came to California. This includes a massive statue that was fashioned more than 100 years ago. The base of that statue is 22 feet tall and is meant to represent the height of the unusually deep snow during that fateful winter. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1812, Russia establishes Fort Ross on the Pacific coast of North America in territory claimed by Spain. In 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ends the Mexican-American War and adds territory to the U.S. In 1876, the National League of Professional Baseball Clubs is formed with just 8 teams. In 1887, Groundhog Day is first celebrated at Gobbler's Knob in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. In 1913, financed by railroad tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt, New York's Grand Central Terminal opens. In 1971, Idi Amin declares himself president of Uganda, killing 300,000 people over the next 8 years. In 2020, a 44-year-old man in the Philippines becomes the first reported coronavirus death outside of China. And now, it's time for our Today in History quiz. What was the name of the intercepted message from Germany to Mexico that helped push the U.S. into World War I? The Schlieffen Telegram, the Zimmermann telegram, the Bismarck telegram, or the Ludendorff telegram? Think you know the answer? Drop your guesses in the comments below. Find out if you're right tomorrow on Today in History.